super carry that we saw a lot last season.
What are your thoughts, Vijay?
Yeah, well, Tenno played Blackfeather and Baron yesterday, and Tenno is really good on Blackfeather, but I think for this matchup, Samuel will be the most contested. If you look at the matches from yesterday, out of the 4 games that I looked at, Samuel was banned 3 times in the first ban phase of the drafts.
Well, here we go. We've got Grumpjaw and Baron banned away once again, so we're kind of, I feel like stepping back a little bit in the meta because they'd started to fall off as the first 2 guaranteed bans, but Grace is going to be the first pick followed by Arden, so very standard stuff, and Batiste banned away
It should
as
be
well.
a Samuel ban here because Samuel is actually good against Grace once he has a Frostburn because he can constantly kite her, and if she dies in, he can then use his Drifting Dark, and I guess they're going to actually ban Vox, so this means Samuel is open for Fnatic here, so if they don't take it here, then G2 will probably take Samuel.
And look at that win rate on the screen as well. 37.5% win rate for Arden, which is very surprising when you consider his pick rate is almost 50%. Like, we're seeing Arden picked a huge amount, but not necessarily getting the wins with it.
Yeah, it's not exactly been a dominant pick. It's an issue where it's kind of a fallback pick for a lot of players, so it just sort of is the default go-to. That's why it's come out so much when you have the Grace being another priority at this moment.
But then you have to bring into question, maybe it needs to stop being the default fallback if the win rate is falling off so much. Glaive has been locked in, though.
Yeah, Glaive has been locked in here, and then with G2, they have a few options. Like I said, Samuel is still open for a Dark Potato here. They also have like other carries such as Gwen, who are pretty good if Ardent Gauntlets or Glaive Afterburns. Gwen can use her scab to get out of it. They can also pick up Blackfeather as well. So they actually go with Lyra and do a triple support composition here. This seems a little bit risky. It's going to be a weapon Grace for sure, but we know that she's strong early game but falls off in the late game.
This is an interesting like, we were coming in saying that Fnatic are the ones that do interesting compositions. This is totally out of left field from G2.
Yeah, very much is. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that they're going to be going with the weapon Grace, which I am just absolutely not a fan of. I feel like in this composition, your best bet for a weapon would be the Adagio, if anything. But this is just a weird draft from the side of G2.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where you can try and predict what's going to happen, but until we actually see them get into the game, it's going to be very difficult to know.
Maybe AJ will get his dream of the weapon Lyra.
Maybe. Well, let's take a look at Fnatic. Like, where do you go with this final pick when you're against this composition? Like, surely, it's going to be a Scarf coming through, but you've got to try and find some way to stop the healing, right?
Yeah, I would assume that the Glaive can just go for the Poison Shiv, and that's going to be their main focus of trying to stop the healing coming out. But at the same time, I think Scarf is pretty good into healers because he just has so much continuous sustained damage that it's just not really possible to heal through all of it.
I mean, there is that argument. What do we think about, like, because, Poke coming out from Scarf before a fight is usually one of his big strengths while you're trying to build up the Broken Myth, right? Do we think that's actually going to be effective this game against 3 healers? Is he going to be able to get through the sustain?
Yeah, well, Grace is going to dive in, and what they are to do, they need to focus the front line. Glaive needs to get Poison Shiv to then weaken and Mortar Wound Grace, and then Scarf needs to then put a goop on Grace. So when she's trying to do Holy Nova, she's literally going to sit on the goop and give him free stacks. So that's a win condition for Fnatic.
Yeah, while the poke that Scarf's trying to do beforehand may not do a whole lot in terms of the damage, it will still get his Broken Myth stacks built up. And that's the main focus. Like, the damage you get out of that poke is just a bonus. It's all about just getting those Broken Myth stacks built up so that when you use your Dragon's Breath, it's, again, I don't care how much healing you have. If it's a fully stacked Broken Myth, the Dragon's Breath coming out, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, we want to know who you guys are going to be supporting going on into this one. G2 versus Fnatic. This is one of the old school hype matchups. Let's see if it can live up to its name. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter is how you can let us know. Let's pass it over to our casters and head on to the Halcyon Fold.
Thank you very much, guys. And AJ, this is the time. We are seeing 3 healers on the fold for G2 in their game against Fnatic. My name is Jules, by the way, obviously joined by AJ. This time has come, and I've been so terrified to when we see this composition.
You know, it's pretty interesting, to be honest, because I remember double heal used to be very good, obviously, and it kind of fell off after some of the Lyra and Adagio nerfs. But this is the logical next step, right? It's like, okay, double heal isn't good enough now. Let's go triple heal. Let's just pick up another one. Why not? I think this could work. I'm a little bit sad that we're not seeing the weapon Lyra. You know, well, in all seriousness, no. But I do think that this could work. This is something where Grace is a hero that can do a lot over the course of a long fight if she can survive a long fight. Because normally when you go weapon Grace, you do a lot up front, and then you don't really have enough in the chamber to keep going because you just die during your heal. You're not tanky enough to actually utilize that ability properly. So having 2 other healers to bolster that Grace and keep her healthy and keep her in the fight to get a second rotation of spells down could mean that all of the burnt mobility is no longer there on your opponents, and you can actually continue the fight a little bit later on. I'll be interested to see if it works, because I do think that's a weakness of weapon Grace normally.
Alright, okay. That's some interesting points, AJ, but I gotta say, the thing with this heal composition, the idea behind it is they just don't die. And then you got Hundor just sitting there, smacking you in the face with alternating current, and it's just gonna end in all disastrousness. I want to see if Dark Potato is actually going to go for the tension bow. He has got 6 sins in his inventory after that first clear, so
he probably will.
All up burst damage Grace is something that I wouldn't be too surprised to see. But looking over to the other side, Techno, he's going to have to get poison ship at some point in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be very, very critical as an item. To be honest, I mean, Palma Net, they can get one as well if they want to. You're against triple heal, like you just need heal reduction urgently. But Techno definitely. Dark Potato, I think Tension Bow is very likely. Grace does a lot in that upfront burst. You can see it there, just dashes in, finds the on-hit effect off of the Retribution attack from Benediction. Does allow her to do a lot in those short instances. And then Hundor follows up like you were saying. On the side of Fnatic, this composition is Europe bread and butter from, you know, literally years ago at this point. They quite frequently used to run the Glaive with the Arden. It's a very strong combination, although typically, and I find this kind of funny, it was always with the Glaive in the jungle and the Scarf in the lane. You can see how things have changed a little bit now with Glaive going towards the lane. The Glaive and the Arden pair very nicely in the early game when they're in the jungle. With the setup they currently have, this is honestly more of a defensive setup. They're more likely to be able to play quite safely, unless Dark Potato prioritizes invading onto Palmatoro, which I actually think that he should do, and I'm kind of surprised that he isn't doing. I do think that Lyra plus Grace is a very strong duo in the jungle. They haven't really been prioritizing pressure, though, and Palmatoro on that Scarf does not have mobility. So perhaps G2 had a window here to punish that pick and that placement of the pick a little bit, but not going for it.
I mean, it is also Palmatoro's Scarf. He's very, very proficient on that
Oh,
hero.
they might cut him off here.
They might, yep, you aren't wrong. They want to go for that invasion, like you said. Level 5 in Dark Potato. Palmator was also level 5. He's going to send out Spitfire. Is going to be able to get it lit up. That goop is going to be on fire, but they're just going to dash straight out of it. Chasing Palmator out now. Nice Holy Nova onto 2 members of Fnatic. That's going to be first blood. That's going to go over to Keanu. That will be Fnatic now losing that advantage in the lane as well, as Hundor did rotate downwards. Taking a couple of tower hits though, but he's going to be all good through the immense amount of heals they got.
So that was really strong play from Dark Potato, especially used his boots, and Grace already has like the highest movement speed base in the game, so he just dashed all the way onto Palmatoro. I thought Palmatoro had managed to get away, not so. Holy Nova positioning was really smart, made it very difficult for Palmatoro to do anything, of course, and you know, that overall was a nice read. Oh, G2.
Oh, Hundor was in a lot of trouble. He ends up going down to the Spitfire, lit by the goop. My goodness. Okay, Fnatic have got a lot of burst as well, and that's exactly what they're going to have to look for. Dark Potato, though, coming in. Just picked up the tension bow, but not really any other backup. Keanu doesn't have any mana available to him, so G2 just going to have to back off.
They do, but if they get backed up sometime soon here by Hundor, they might look for a fight. He's a little bit far away, though. Yeah, I mean, what you saw there was the reason why that Glaive Arden Scarf combo was a thing previously when it was with the roles reversed. Very good at finding picks in the early game. I do want to talk about G2, though. I mean, that read on the rotation for Palmatoro was perfect. You can really see that they're paying very close attention to the map. They're utilizing the vision that they have very effectively, and they're also keeping in mind the timings of jungle camp spawning. So G2 is looking really good right now, but Fnatic is responding in kind, and I think this is bound to be one of the matches of the day for me, actually. Both of these teams very, very strong. You can see it in how they're playing. it's very blow for blow in the early game here.
Well, that's what Fnatic need to be able to achieve, that blow for blow, those trading, because G2, when they get later on, their heals might just be a little bit too much. I would honestly like to see Palmatora with a Poison Shiv. Triple Poison Shiv would be quite funny, but would do quite well, like you mentioned. That Mortal Wound is going to degrade some of that healing a fair bit. Huddle's going to rotate down now, and has picked up his Alternating Current, so big power spike for him. He's got the extra double crystal bit as well. This gold mine is half stacked. We're 6 minutes into the game, and trading 1-4 isn't so bad, but Fnatic, I mean, their siege potential is not that great. There's so much disengage for G2.
So this is a huge item spike. You mentioned the alternating current. That's one of the bigger spikes, actually, that Nadagio can pick up. You can see already, with 2 attacks, he's doing something like a fifth of Tetno's health. That's pretty obscene when you combo that with Grace. It honestly amounts to burst, even though AC is a continuous damage item. So G2, immediately they're like, all right, I just spiked Dark Potato, get up here, let's apply some pressure. And they are doing that already. It's kind of forcing Palmatoro to respond in kind, head to the lane. That means that G2 can take pressure in the jungle, clear scout traps, go to the shop, itemize quicker, you know, before their opponents can actually do that. It's a good opportunity. Fnatic, that response was nice, what they did there. Actually pushing up the wave when G2 tries to take jungle pressure means that Hundur loses some creeps. So again, this is smart play from both teams. Like, they're doing the right things and they're responding in the right ways. It's just about who has initiative, right? In a lot of these setups, because if they can actually translate this into a solid advantage, then they're going to be able to constantly just lead these plays throughout the match.
Leading is exactly what they're doing now, forcing Fnatic underneath their turrets. They're just denying Palmatoro's entrance to the lane as well is very, very important to them. Knowing that Palmatoro really, realistically, is the only ranged wave clear on the side of Fnatic, so they won't be able to do all too much when the wave is pushed up all the way to that turret. Poison Shiv has now been completed, first item for Tetno. Wasn't too much of a surprise, and that burst damage isn't going to be there, but sustain ability and getting that mortal wound on a couple of members of G2 is going to be paramount for them. And now Fnatic are just going to push out of this lane. They're going to have dominant control over the vision now in G2's jungle. G2 are going to need to respond fairly quickly to this. They're going to walk down this lane. That turret is about half HP now. And you can see when G2 laps, that's exactly what happens. Fnatic push the go button, and the half the turret HP is already gone.
So theoretically, G2 could do the same thing if Fnatic ever leave the lane, but there's less of an incentive for them to do that, especially now that Tetno just picked up his second item, whereas Hundur, he's on 2,000 gold right now. He really wants to leave the lane, but I think it's already been proven that he can't very safely do that, knowing how quickly Fnatic can push. They're going to do it anyway. It's arguable whether this is a great plan or not. If they get the gold mine, it probably works, because Fnatic needs to respond to that.
Oh, they're responding right now. The gold mine is going down very low. It's going to get it straight over to Fnatic. Palmatoro steals that one away. It's just a basic attack. Palmatoro comes in. G2 starts it, and they go, thank you very much. That's an extra, it's about 250 gold, I think that was, over to each member of Fnatic. Beautiful rotation there from Fnatic. I mean, G2 looking like they went for the proactive play, but got it stolen from them.
So it was interesting that they chose that particular proactive play, though, because there's a variety of things they could have done. I think arguably the best would have just been to sort of threaten it, but have Hundur go down to the shop whilst they think, oh, Keanu.
Oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, Keanu, Tetno, there's the passageway. There comes the Bright Bulwark. Tetno is going to reposition him, though. Tetno going down really low from that Benediction. Nice gauntlet, though, to trap one of the members up. Dark Potato is going to get burned alive. Palmatoro just rushing forward with the Dragon's Breath. But there you go, there's the heal. Hundur full HP again after getting sent about minus 200. Palmatoro now is going to get jumped on once more, but Dark Potato is doing a fair bit of damage with that tension bow. Almost got that Sora Blade up and available to him as well. Now G2, they've got the healing, and Fnatic are kind of bleeding at the wounds here now. They're going to need to back off because G2 definitely have the HP advantage.
Fnatic need to be careful not to fall for the trap of G2's composition, although G2 also need to not bite off too much here, going very deep under the turret there. Let's return to that gold mine play, though, because that was definitely an interesting decision point for these teams. I really feel like the correct option would have been for Hundur to shop whilst his team represented the threat of taking it, so that he could spend his money and then skirmish immediately when Fnatic responded. Rather than actually trying to take the gold mine, you use the gold mine as bait to fight when you're more powerful right now, which they absolutely would have been with Hundur picking up the item. But off the back of that, they were able to get some turret damage down. Fnatic has not really been able to do much the last minute or two, and I'm sure with the glaive they'd like to. So this has ended up fine, honestly, for both teams. No one had any catastrophic losses. It speaks to how evenly matched they are.
Well, not so evenly matched right now as Hundor picks up his second item, that Broken Myth. Pamatoro just finishing his, though, as I say that. He does pick up the Broken Myth as well for himself. Now G2 wants more pressure in this lane. They know Pamatoro's in that shop, or at least they might have an inkling. So just positioning in at that brush is very important. Now Pamatoro is going to come through. We'll see if Techno JJ wants to make a move here. Problem is, Keanu does have the Bright Bulwark available. Net Toilette going in. Doesn't have Gauntlet just yet available to him as he does get snared by that Bright Bulwark, like I mentioned. G2 backing off rather safely. But Fnatic, they want to go, and they want to go now.
Fnatic are definitely at a bit of a power spike right now, having picked up a second item on Palmatoro, as well as Techno just being sort of intrinsically a bit better in the early game and the mid game, I suppose. Palma actually going for the Broken Myth second here is quite interesting, rather than Eve. He's not expecting the fights that they win to be long.
That was spicy. Hundor just reflex blocked that one. Techno JJ going fairly low. Fantasy's going to get popped on the side of Fnatic. Now they're retreating. Techno is extremely weak. Has to back out the fight as soon as Dark Potato showed himself. There we go. Another divine intervention does heal up Keanu, and Techno almost falls again. There comes the Gauntlet. Only one stunned up this time. Hundor is going to be able to get out of there, and so is Techno. That tension bow on Dark Potato is just too much for him to handle. Turret is going to fall, and G2 with the advantage.
This is a really rough game for Palmatoro because as Scarf, you want long fights normally, right? That's one of the reasons why you would pick up the Broken Myth, right? You want to get lots of stacks, turn around and burn with the Dragon's Breath. Eve of Harvest is also an item that incentivizes you to fight a longer fight, right? You know, the sustain does more in that situation. But in this particular game, neither item can really be fully utilized, right? I think Broken Myth is the better of the two for the game, so I like what Palmatoro is doing. But if you try and fight a substantially longer fight against G2, you lose almost 100% of the time because they have so much healing, and you do not have, I would say, probably the damage to take them down very consistently in that situation. You need to burst someone with Glaive and finish them off, or you need to get someone low, and whilst the heals are still incoming, kill them with the Glaive. So here comes the
hang on a minute, because Passageway and then the burst is going to come out as well. He's going to get blocked, but Techno taking the brunt of that damage. Dark Potato dashing forwards. Here comes the Driving Death from Palmatoro. He's going to use that and run towards Keanu. Dark Potato there with the heal is going to be able to heal him up without too much of an issue. Jumps back in with the Benediction. And now Palmatoro fairly low. Net's well out in the front line. Techno is actually going to have to recall now. And now G2 once again. That healing and sustain coming out from them is just too much for Fnatic to handle.
See, there's a great example of what I was talking about towards the end of that fight. Palmatoro had around 8 Broken Myth stacks, but he was already super low and they had no sustain, so he couldn't turn and actually use those stacks. He was also forced to Dragon's Breath pretty early in the fight as a dissuasive maneuver against what G2 could try and do in terms of diving the turret. And as a result, Scarf just hasn't been able to utilize all of the power of that hero this game. G2, on the other hand, they're playing their comp very well right now, but they're not finding as much siege as they would like, I'm sure. They'd much prefer to be able to actually consistently get damage onto turrets, rather than just force people back, but then be a little bit too low on energy, too low on health, to be able to get the heals out. Whilst, you know, sieging into a Scarf, who has great ability to defend against sieges here. G2, I think a big window for them is going to be this Kraken spawn. It's about to happen about 20 seconds from now. If they can force a skirmish away from a turret, they can fully abuse the fact that if you try and fight them and you don't fully commit, if you need to back away, there's nothing for Fnatic to leverage. There's no turret there. They have to worry about the Kraken going down. They have to commit when they don't really want to.
Well, they have to worry about the gold miner as well, because G2 are going to secure themselves one, just as that Kraken spawns. Now, Fnatic, with the pressure mounting against them, G2 have only got strides ahead right now for them to really take this game. They're really just making sure Fnatic just can't get an in. And we spoke yesterday about the Dark Potato coming back. I'm trying to think of the word. The cooperation, the ability for them to work well together as a team is just absolutely
Synergy.
come out of nowhere. Synergy. That's a good word to use, AJ. There we go. We found the dictionary in the end. But the synergistic ability for Dark Potato to come back and go, hey, guess what? We're actually a team that can contend at the highest levels, and they're proving it right now. The team player's just been absolutely on point, and their ability to engage and disengage a whim is just absolutely beautiful to watch. They're going to start up the Kraken now. Fnatic are going to respond to it, though. We'll see if they do want to fight around this, just because Netwillet does have that gauntlet available. Actually, I thought that was a Versus Judgment, not a Versus Judgment. The Divine Intervention coming down, but it was actually just a heal from Keanu. And now Fnatic just doing that Kraken dance, but G2 are going to decide, you know what, we're going to go back to lane.
Their wave is being pushed in right now. They'd rather not lose a turret for free, so going up here and shoving the wave before they really commit to any plays in the jungle makes a lot of sense. This is what Fnatic wants, though. They'd much rather try and fight in the lane than around Kraken.
Well, they're still going to get lane priority, which is the most important thing at the moment. Just using those minions as small scout traps or small bits of vision is very important, just to get an eye on the lane. Then they know where Fnatic are, and speaking of knowing where they are, Netwillet is going to have to run away. And you can just see how scary Dark Potato is. He's got an infusion in his inventory. He's got a Sorrow Blade Attention Bow. He's walking up to two members of Fnatic, and they're just backing off. They don't want to fight him. They don't want to touch or go near him. G2 are now going to restart up this crack and drag it into the brush here. They've got to be careful, because that is going to reset in a couple of seconds if they're not careful, and Fnatic are here as well. There's a very good gauntlet position. There comes the passageway, though, when they do want to jump straight onto Palmatoro. There comes the verse. It's going to get blocked, and that gauntlet's going to come down as well, but Netwillet is trapped inside there. Palmatoro very low, but just dashing forward. There comes the Holy Nova from Dark Potato, still not going down. Palmatoro low. Dark Potato is the first casualty of the fight, but they trade one for one thus far. Keanu is going to come up, and Hundor is just going to dash forward, using that speed up from that sigil, but the heal is enough for G2 to survive this one, but Palmatoro just chunking them out with the Spitfires stops them doing the Kraken.
That was a really close fight. Palmatoro managed to survive long enough that he was able to get a lot of Broken Myth stacks and then turn and burn with the Dragon's Breath. But the question for me is why they weren't even snappier on their engage. The Bright Bulwark was quite delayed, and it gave a lot of time for Techno JJ to reposition, right? Like, everyone on G2 decided to commit to that kill on Palmatoro, but they let Glaive, who had gone all the way into the bush because he needed to, on the off chance that Kraken was low enough that it was a big problem. He needed to go that far, but then he was able to turn and move all the way in and have Afterburn available and all those things because Bulwark didn't come out immediately. So that was a bit interesting. Also, if not for triple heal, that team fight goes massively Fnatic's way. You can see how much that strategy is working for G2 right now. Also, had they not been kited into that choke point, maybe they chase down and find kills. A lot of things went just right for Fnatic for them to be able to compete, but that bought them a lot of time, and Scarf does scale just much better than anything G2 has to offer here.
Yeah, the heals aren't going to scale quite as much, and like you said, the turn and burn from his ultimate. As soon as he gets a couple of Broken Myth stacks, or maybe not a couple, a few, really just G2 melt in front of them. And then they have to pop all their heals and just make sure they stay alive, and then it just leaves Techno JJ to turn around and also do an absolute ton of damage with that Sorrow Blade and Breaking Point now.
Honestly, Jaws, I think a few is probably not accurate either. I would say a plethora.
A lot, a whole bunch, an absolute extravagant amount. Now, G2 maybe looking for a little engage here. Keanu, there we go. There's the passageway straight into the Bulwark as well. Nice burst. It's going to separate Fnatic. That gauntlet's going to be pretty big, but a nice Holy Nova onto two people. Now the turn of burn comes out. 4-5, Broken Myth sags. Palmatoro just popping off. He manages to take out one already. 1-for-1 trade again. Keanu's going to have to exit the fight, but the Kraken finishes him off, and Palmatoro secures the kill. And now it's Hundor trying to do the damage to finish this one up, or at least trade another kill. Netwillet is going to chase him up. Hundor on the retreat is going to turn round. Basic attack Netwillet a couple of times, but you know he can't go any harder because Palmatoro is right round the corner now in this brush. G2 losing a couple of members there once again, thwarting their ability to take this Kraken.
So that was actually quite an ill-conceived initiation from G2. They were trying to get onto the backline to Palmatora, but the position they engaged on was right at the corner of that wall. So Palma just popped boots and ran around the wall. And at that point, there's no mobility spells past Arcane Passage between Keanu, Nakoa, and Hundor. So they're in kind of an awkward position. Tetno's able to back them up, right? Because the Bright Bulwark is kind of... The edge of it is with the wall, so he's able to go adjacent to that and get very, very close if he wants to afterburn. But he was actually close enough that I believe he just walked in. I'd have to look at a replay. And then on top of that, Hundor was so deep without backup from Dark. Like, Dark Potato had a very delayed follow-up there. So Hundor just got half health by Tetno immediately. That meant that he had to kill Tetno in case Tetno finished him off, rather than killing Palmatora, which is the whole point of the engagement from G2. So they weren't able to actually follow up the way that they wanted to. That meant that Dark Potato was on the backline trying to zone Palmatora. That's not how you want to win a fight for G2. G2 are kind of gifting Fnatic a few opportunities to get back into the game here and really scale past the healing with Scarf.
I mean, the healing composition that Triple Heal is just not as scary as I thought it would be, in all honesty. I just thought none of them were going to die, but Palmatora just getting so scary and so built up in terms of items. It's getting a bit more of an issue for G2 to actually dealing that final blow. He's got so much protection as well. They haven't really got a massive amount of burst damage apart from Dark Potato jumping in. Speaking of jumping in, G2 looking for the ability to come in now. Passageway, like all ultimates are available, not just Passageway. Passage has been quite the initiator for G2, but as soon as they do, Palmatora kites back, gets a couple of basic attacks down, and he's full stack on the Broken Myth. But speaking of that, Fnatic now kiting backwards. Here comes Dragon Breath Gauntlet, just misused there by Net Toilette. G2 disengaging instantly, baiting, you could say, out that Gauntlet. That's a big cooldown now, 65 seconds. And Fnatic blowing a couple of their ultimates as well there. It's going to be pretty massive to them. They're going to start at that Kraken now. Fnatic on the back foot this time.
Everything was a little bit premature there by Fnatic. Now they have to contest Kraken with nothing in the tank. This could actually be a great opportunity for G2, but they're getting scared, and I'm not entirely sure why. There's no Gauntlet. There's no Dragon's Breath. You've still got Arcane Passage and Divine Intervention, not to mention your triple heal comp, and you have more health than your opponents. G2 really could have gone for Kraken there.
Yeah, they decided to back off. Maybe a little bit too scared. They don't want to lose another member, because at this point in the game, we are 23 minutes in. The gold lead only stretching in G2, only 2k, but if Fnatic wipe out a couple of members, they're going to at least take Kraken and another turret. So being a little more hesitant in their play might work out for them, but Palmatora getting much scarier now with that infusion in his inventory. Does have that Eve of Harvest, everything he needs to kind of burn through the members of G2. See him striking Dark Potato there, and he's going to get chunked out a fair bit. But Fnatic, they got all their cooldowns back, so they can fight any time they want.
G2, alright, this is interesting actually. Hunter over the wall. Not really worrying too much about Tetno following up on him. We've got all the ultimates back here for Fnatic now, so if they want to pick a fight, they can definitely do that. At this point, you know, Scarf is strong enough that these fights lasting long has begun to be actually good for him. So long as the Gauntlet is in the correct position, I think Fnatic can take these. Palmatora just does too much damage for the heals at this juncture. G2, they're going to go in though.
Oh, they're going to go in. Passageway with the burst mixed up yet again. It's going to get completely blocked, but the silence is going to come through on Keanu. Here comes the Dragon's Breath. That is just stacking up. Also goodness for Palmatora. He's going to chase them out. Here comes the Divine Intervention, though, to heal up one member. Hundor is just going to get taken out before it's even popped, though. Keanu on the run, and now Fnatic. Their game is now. They want to end this right this very second. Tetno not even falling here. Keanu can't find the executing blow. Fnatic beating the triple healing composition, AJ, in that team fight. They're playing these absolutely perfectly.
You know, Grace ulted towards the end of that fight, but you might not be able to tell because the mortal wounds, plus, you know, just the fact that she's not really comparable to, like, Palmatora's damage at this point with that heal, made it look like she didn't. You know, it was really not even close to enough. Palmatora with 3 items and 8+ broken myth stacks is just going to outdamage anything. So this is getting to a point where G2's composition begins to fall off. Like, against a lot of opponents, I think triple heal would be great in the late game. Against any opponent, it's pretty much great in the mid game. But against Scarf here with 3 items, it's just not even close to enough. Also, that fight, the engagement was about as good as it gets, because Nettoilette inadvertently took a passage, was not in range to Crucible, Fountain, or do anything for his team, and G2 still couldn't kill their opponents, because there's too much defense now as well on Fnatic. With the Kraken pushing in here, it's their opportunity to close out game number 1.
Yeah, it is. That Kraken is going to get pushed in. They're going to start another fight, though. That passageway being used a little more defensively. Now Palmator is going to get jumped on. Dark Potato is going to have to be very, very careful because he's got Tendo JJ to deal with. The Gauntlet comes down, locking them all in place. Now Palmator just walking forwards, burning G2 alive. That Kraken is still knocking on the base doors, though. Turret hasn't quite fallen just yet. Dark Potato, now the focus of Fnatic. He gets redirected outside his own fountain. My goodness, that is Fnatic. They looking like they want to take game 1 here, but Hundor says not today. Nettoilette is almost going to go down at the back of the crystal. Palmatoro, not too much energy under his belt now, has to deal with Keanu. Hundor still trying to kill Nettoilette. He's not gone down just yet. Kraken's still knocking on the crystal. Palmatoro is going to fall. There's another passageway. That's on such a short cooldown. That's how long this team fight has gone about. Now Nettoilette just delaying the inevitable. That Kraken knocking. One more hit, AJ, and this could be it. One more, in fact, after that one. The Kraken takes the game for Fnatic. And that'll be game number 1. Just lost completely by G2.
Turns out Arden's heroic perk is real good, Jaws. That was the difference between winning and losing the game right at the end. Also a difference between winning and losing. Not using Crucible to aggressively push on Palmatoro through the gauntlet when he was very low, standing still, channeling Dragon's Breath when they were trying to push for the base. I think G2 got a little scared at the end there, and maybe the decision-making process broke down a little bit.
We'll see what they want to do in game number 2. Maybe not triple heal this time, but we'll jump over to the desk, though, where those guys can break it down a little bit more.
Well, that was definitely an intriguing game, it has to be said. A full heal composition coming out from G2. I mean, let's start right at the draft, right? That's where it all kicked off. They pick all of the sustain. Like, what went wrong for this composition? Because it felt like it could have worked, but it just fell a little bit short.
I think a little bit of it was just where they chose to put each hero. I like the Lyra as the captain in this composition because she has the best heal scaling with health, and so having her as the captain is great. But the Grace and Adagio, if you just swap their roles, have the Grace be crystal power, the Adagio be weapon. Yes, you don't get as much scaling off of Adagio, but he has a little bit better attack anyway. He's much safer with his weapon attacks, and Grace is just her crystal scaling numbers are absurd. Like, they are absolutely ridiculous. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but there's just also the execution, Sweet J.
Yeah, early game, if you're going to do a Grace combination or any double heal or triple heal composition, you need to win the early game, deny jungle. And Grace weapon is so good at stealing camps and just shutting down Scarf in early game. And they didn't do a lot of that. And you also need to win the mid game as well. So you need to get 2 turrets before the preferably 10-minute mark and not allow Scarf to get to his late game. And also, Palmataro did not play the best Scarf. I mean, he missed so many Spitfires. He ulted prematurely, like AJ said, like only with 1 or 2 broken mid stacks. He also had one ult where he completely whiffed it. He didn't even land on anybody. So like Fnatic didn't even play the greatest, and I felt like G2 knew their win condition. They're trying to get onto Scarf, but I wish they were much more aggressive in the early phase of the game. Shut them down, deny, and snowball it, but they just didn't do that because Grace with a tension bow can steal camps like nothing, and they have double heal, triple heal actually. So I didn't feel like they pushed the early game hard enough.
They need to be more aggressive and like really abuse that sustain that they had. That's what they were kind of trying to do as we got towards the later stages of the game. We saw them like kind of tiptoeing around these fights. They were playing almost a siege composition early, but then when we got to these fights, it was frustrating because they would go for the fight, get Fnatic to use all their ultimates, and then back away when the damage is gone, which is surely when G2's composition can actually win the fight.
Yeah, it was just a very strange decisions being made by G2. And again, I'm going to go back to the weapon Grace aspect. Is when she uses her A as a weapon Grace, that's where all of her damage is. It's all just front-loaded into one ability. Whereas if you go for the Crystal Grace, she has a 100% crystal scaling on her
Look at
A.
that, just Teno JJ right
That was a beautiful
that
play.
Was absolutely
That
gorgeous.
was pretty much the game-sealing play. But Holy Nova, 200% crystal scaling. Divine Intervention, 150% crystal scaling. Not only that, but then you're also extending durations of the slow from her perk, and the Holy Shield extends the duration of that on your allies if you're by crystal. It has a crystal scaling. So
conclusion,
why are teams not playing Crystal Grace if they're going to put Grace as a carry?
Conclusion is Tasty Bacon really, really likes Crystal Grace. We'll see whether that's going to come into this draft. We'll see whether we see another crazy composition like that. I'm a little bit surprised that it was on G2's side, because Fnatic are usually the ones that like to change their compositions up a little bit. What are we expecting coming into this next draft, Suijay?
Yeah, I think G2 is going to probably curb it a little bit. They have played triple support last season, and they actually lost with it. So this is their second time trying complete support and losing with it. Again, you have to play to the comp's win conditions.
You got to admire the passion, right? At least
I
they're
do
trying.
like the innovation. They
It has worked in the past with other triple captain compositions, but it's very hit or miss.
No, they did a Lyra lane, and it just that didn't work. So.
Yeah, they did it once, but I'm saying other teams have done triple captain.
Right,
in the
but
past
we're
and
on
had
G2
success.
right now, so I think they're gonna switch it up right now, and I feel like G2 is probably gonna play more traditional compositions with an actual hard carry. Adagio is a hard carry, but he needs a strong jungler to support him, just like a Weapon Glaive, Weapon Grumpjaw, very strong with Adagio, of course. So they're gonna then take the Grumpjaw, which is perfect because I feel like Grumpjaw has a lot of strong early game potential here.
Yeah, as long as they actually use that early game potential, because again, we mentioned last game they had the early game strength of the Grace and just didn't really take full advantage going into the Scarf, who has such a weak early game. They got the first blood, but they really should have been constantly looking for those kills.
Yeah, once again we see another Arden coming in very early on in the draft, despite his kind of depressingly low win rate, right?
Well, to be fair, that win rate that we saw was only in the combined North America and Europe. In Europe specifically, before last game, it's actually going to be a little bit higher now. It was 50% win rate in Europe.
Okay.
So he's the most played hero throughout all of Europe, but with a 50% win rate. So it's in Europe, they're just playing it a little bit better, it seems. Maybe just picking it in better situations, although it is just kind of coming through pretty much all the time.
I think it's because he's so hard and Europe's just the superior region. Or is that, am I going on a tangent there? Maybe I am. Yes, Suijay, talk to me about these bans.
So Blackfeather is a good ban against Sentinel JJ. He's played that hero very well. He's very well known for that weapon Blackfeather in lane. So I feel like a ban from Fnatic will probably be like a Vox or something. They want to deny Vox from G2 because Hundor plays a good and strong Vox. But they may ban maybe potential jungler that they don't want G2 to play. Like, for example, Samuel, for example, could also come out as a potential ban here. But I think with the Arden composition, there's Glaive is also very strong with Arden. So Glaive will probably be a pick that I see Fnatic picking up if it's not picked up by G2 here, because Techno does play a really strong weapon Glaive as well. And you want to pick something that's tanky and strong that can stand up against a Grumpjaw. So you can go ahead with the Baptiste pick here, and that's a very strong pick with Grumpjaw, because now you can flex either Grumpjaw or Baptiste as captain.
Yeah, and with the Blackfeather band away as well, I almost want to lean towards that, the Baptiste being in the jungle, because, you know, Blackfeather's so good against Baptiste, it would kind of explain that ban a little bit. I could be reading into that ban a little bit too much, though. Kestrel going to be the lock-in here for Fnatic.
Yeah, Kestrel is one of the higher win rates in all of Europe. It's a pick that a lot of teams have really started to put a little bit more emphasis on, a little bit more priority, sitting about a 63% win rate for her in Europe specifically. So a very strong hero. Baptiste gonna make another appearance as well. I feel like Baptiste is one of these picks that's been really underutilized until like this past week or so. A lot of teams are really starting to figure it out.
I like the Scarf pickup here. Again, range counters Baptiste as long as you don't let him get onto you. So Scarf can poke for days. And again, they need to not let this Scarf get to late game. However, Baptiste does have a Fear and Grumpjaw does have a Stuff. So if Scarf wants to, you know, go ahead and do the Dragon Breath, they can eat Scarf or Fear Scarf and cancel the ultimate. So it's a really... G2 has really good composition into Scarf right now, especially for the late game to cancel that Dragon Breath.
But once again, we see Fnatic with the Gauntlet Dragon Breath combo, right? You lock them in with the Gauntlet and then burn them alive on the Scarf. And Palmatoro, I think, has to be the most seasoned Scarf player across the VGA, right? We've seen him pick this up quite a lot of times now. This is very clearly a comfort pick for him.
Yeah, I agree. Even though last game I did not like the way he played Scarf, he has played it a lot and has a lot of success with it. But that last game, he didn't mechanically he missed a lot of skill shots and didn't time his ultimate at the right time. So if he changes it up and does it right, now G2's composition here, Gwen has a stun as well. So there's a lot of CCing and abilities that they can use to cancel the Scarf ultimate. So I'm going to be looking to see if Palmataro is going to max his Dragon's Breath here in this game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this one, and whether G2 can get back on into this game. What do we think about the compositions? Do we feel like Fnatic have the advantage to push this one out into a 2-0, or are we looking at a 3-game series?
I actually really like what Fnatic has here against the Grumpjaw specifically. The Kestrel and the Scarf, I think, are two really strong picks into Grumpjaw. And in fact, in Europe, Grumpjaw has been beaten 7 times. 5 of those games, either Scarf or Kestrel was on the winning side against the Grumpjaw. So it's definitely, I think they've really built themselves to focus on making sure that they cannot get beaten by that jungler.
Looking to shut him down. What are your thoughts, VJ?
If they play CP Gwen with Weapon Grumpjaw, G2 is going to win hands down. CP Gwen completely counters both their picks in the late game hard.
Okay, well, we'll see whether that is going to be the case. Coming on into this game, G2 are 1-0 down right now. Fnatic looking for a 2-0. Let us know who you guys at home are supporting. Hashtag Vainglory8. Do you believe in the G2 comeback, in the rebirth, as it were? Or do you believe that Fnatic will go through into the final once again? It wouldn't be the first time that they've managed to do it for themselves. We'll see if they can replicate that success once more as they go on into this game. Certainly going to be all to play for between these two teams. So we're just waiting for one of the players to get fully ready before we can jump on into this game quickly. So what are we thinking about this game, Sujay?
Yeah, I'm thinking what G2 is going to do. Are they going to weapon Gwen, or they're going to do CP Baptiste? I think the best solution for them is to play CP Gwen, weapon Grumpjaw again. I love weapon Grumpjaw because when he has Tenspro Monaco, he can blow up a Kestra or a Scarf in literally 4 hits. Yeah. So that's what I prefer the competitions they run. And it's a Captain Baptiste is actually really strong because he can get Echo the Fear, right? So if you miss the first
saw that yesterday.
If you miss the Scarf and he blocks it, you can just Fear again, and then boom, you cancel the ult. So I feel like that's probably the best competition that G2 run. And if they're going to run that competition, they're going to win.
All right, well, we've got to get on into the game now. Everybody is ready, so let's pass it over to our casters who are just about ready to jump into the game.
Thank you very much, guys. Game at number 2, Fnatic versus G2. Fnatic 1-0 up right now, and, well, they've got 2 of the same catalysts that made them win the first game. Palmataro on the Scarf, and Net2 once again on the Ardent.
Yeah, this is certainly a composition Fnatic has shown a lot of strength on. They've shown they're comfortable with, but at the same time, there were weaknesses in the way that they played it last game. Like Suijay said, I'd like to see them tighten up their game a little bit. On the other hand, G2 have decided to play quite an interesting composition here. I've got to assume that Dark Potato will play the same build that he did on day 1 with the Grumpjaw, which is to say that he'll play the more proc-oriented build. Keanu getting denied his opportunity to invade there by the Treant. Root not going where he would have wanted it to. He's actually got to be careful here with Tetno rotating down.
He really does. Palmataro is going to get sped up. There comes the Goop. He's going to get lit on fire. So is Keanu. Net2 moving forward, but that buckshot from Hundor will provide a lot of assistance. But hang on a second, because Dark Potato's jumping in. He picks up first blood. Oh my, I can't watch this Grumpjaw anymore. Too much damage. Dark Potato is already off to a good start.
I think I've said it before, Jaws. Silly damage coming out from Grumpjaw there. That was 2 weapon blades, and he was chunking down Palmataro for something like a quarter of his health per basic attack at level 2. I mean, that's just... all right.
Seems good.
All right, let's talk about other things. I got to refocus here. Dark Potato is going to take down that Elder Treant. That's pretty good stuff for G2. Fnatic did give over a really big window here for G2 off the back of that. We know what can happen when Gwen, when Baptiste, when Grumpjaw, any of those heroes gets ahead early on. I do have to worry a little bit for Fnatic in the next couple of minutes here. They've got to make sure they don't hemorrhage any further deficits from that misplay.
Yeah, I mean, we all have seen Dark Potato get ahead on in these early stages of the jungle, and we've all seen what happens when a Grumpjaw gets ahead with that monocle, well, double monocle with the tension bow build, like Suijay was alluding to on the desk. very, very scary. He's going to come in once more. That Dane's going to get put down, and Palmatoro is going to get taken out by Hundor. Netwillet is going to be next on the menu for him. Hundor picks himself up a double kill. Dark Potato taking a couple of glimmer shots on the way out, but G2 already off to a flying start.
Yeah, a glopple of glimmer shots there, Jaws. Not going to be enough to take down Dark Potato when your weapon power, and you have not even gone to the shop yet, sitting on 1,000 gold. This is getting a bit out of hand already, and we're only 3 minutes into the game. Grumpjaw does really insane damage early here, especially to someone with as low a base health as Palmatoro's Scarf. I honestly think Palmatoro needs to buy a light armor right now. Right now, just buy it. Just buy it right now. I don't care if you're late to your first item. You're going to reduce the damage you're taking by 25%. He would potentially be living in some of these situations if he went ahead and picked that up. And whilst he's doing that, everyone on his team should, because Grumpjaw's damage is just obscene at the moment, and it's only going to get worse when you're feeding him kills right now. He's only got one of them, but he's got the 2 assists as well, right? He's starting to make his way towards that tension bow. When he has I think he's actually just going to half health someone with his first basic once he has tension bow. That's insane.
You could say he's a little bit too strong right now. That's a good way of putting it, I think. He's almost got the tension bow, by the way, AJ. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's got enough to kind of go buy it. When the jungle does intensify in about 10 seconds, I'm sure he will rotate downwards. Netwillet holding the lane, though, to make sure Techno JJ does not lose out on any farm. We've seen it time and time again. Batiste combo with anybody with harsh engage, like the Grumpjaw. You lock them in with the Ordain, Grumpjaw jumps on them, almost one-shots them. It's so hard for them to do anything else. Speaking of jumping on him, Palmatoro is going to get stunned as they do Ordain him, and he is going to have to back off. Dark Potato takes away one of those front healing camps, and he's going to pick himself up a tension bow as well. There we go. And the crystal...
Ooh.
Oh, dear. Crystal power.
All right, wait. So, I think a lot of people, including myself, because we saw Dark Potato go for the proc-based build yesterday on Grumpjaw, did not expect this to actually come out, even though Suijo is like, yeah, this should come out. G2, they're actually playing a Crystal Gwen. Now, this is pretty interesting. It is honestly a bigger spike right now than it would have been if she'd gone Tension Bow, just because they have mixed damage. I mean, look at that buckshot.
Oh my god, Techno was not long for the world. Buckshot doing a bajillion damage, and so is Dark Potato with a couple of basic attacks after he procs his Tension Bow. G2 pick himself up another kill. 4 kills in 5 minutes, and Palmatoro just slinking his way back to lane, just wondering what happened.
So let's talk about the ramifications of the build choices here for G2. It does mean that later in the game, you cannot get into a poke war with G2, even though you have Scarf, because Buckshot is going to be doing really silly damage. On top of that, it means that G2, although that's the case, really don't want this game to get to that point, because aside from that poke damage, they've not got a lot to offer. They really want to win fights sooner than later. Right now, they can basically one-shot Palmatoro if they just go for the Buckshot from Gwen and the B ability from the Grumpjaw. This is their opportunity, but based on last game, we know that they don't always go as aggressive as they need to. So I'd like to see them start to push the tempo a little bit. They were very opportunistic in their early game plays already this game. It wasn't things that they were necessarily setting up. It was more things that, you know, Fnatic overextended and they punished them. I'd like to see G2 really be the one setting up these plays. They can do it. They have the kind of damage they need.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, AJ. I'm not gonna lie. They've got the damage that they need, 100%. Especially Hundor just... buckshotting someone for half their HP.
Whoa,
oh, Keanu in a lot of trouble. Takes a couple of glimmer shots. Techno, luckily though, not at level 6. Oof, there you go. There's, oh my goodness, that combo as well. Actually, a small interaction that I didn't think about. As soon as Techno does go into the active camo, buckshot to reveal him, and then Dark Potato just jumps on him.
So, yeah, that's, I mean, the buckshot reveal is definitely key here. Dark Potato actually canceled 2 of his basic attacks in that initiation. I don't think he would have got the kill, because when one resolves, he would have not been able to move closer, but still, definitely worth noting that, you know, I do this all the time on Grumpjaw. I don't know what it is about him, but when I'm trying to get basic attacks down, I find it very easy to cancel them. I guess their wind-up's kind of higher than you expect, even with the attack speed boost on your B. But right now, G2, they're starting to try and find the opening. I'm not sure under the turret is the place to do it. This is the kind of location that someone like Kestrel, someone like Scarf really enjoys playing around, because they have this easy pivot point that they can maneuver around and actually set up around. Whereas, if G2 were to pressure into the jungle, they could easily take a sentry right now. They could easily steal away camps. They could easily get vision down and then catch Palmatoro later. That's probably the place they should be applying the pressure.
Clockwork has been finished by Hundor now, so maybe they want to apply that pressure right this very second. So big power spike for him, gives him a lot of cooldown, so he can box shot for absolute days. With the Dark Potato hitting that level 8 as well. So strongest on the map at this current time, just judging by his items and the ability to pick up a monocle very shortly as well. I know JJ's not really going to stand a chance, but that's not really what Fnatic want to do. They want to be able to just sit back, glimmer shot away, and then re-engage kind of with Net Toilette using that Gauntlet, and then Palmatoro using that Dragon Breath. We can see Keanu off to the side here. Might want to go for a small engage here if Dark Potato doesn't get chunked out a little bit more.
Fearsome Shade from the bush could be pretty devastating if it lands.
Ordain onto Techno. There's the buckshot. There's the kill. There's the damage.
Where'd he
oh
go?
My god. He got deleted. Netwillet gets eaten as well. He's going to get spat back into the rest of G2. He's trying to do everything he can to survive, but it's never going to be enough. Not against Dark Potato's damage. He finds himself a double kill, and they're going to find themselves lane priority as well.
Honestly, compositions that work well in the early game, or rather, let me rephrase that. Compositions with good chain crowd control work really well in the early game in Vainglory. This is an example of that from G2 with the Fearsome Shade and Ordained. Palma boldly trying to defend the turret with his ultimate will just about be able to do it, but now with very low energy, G2 could probably just go back in if they wanted to. I'm kind of surprised they're backing away so much.
I mean, Dark Potato is fairly low. He hasn't got much energy as well, so I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons. He's also got 2,000 gold in his pocket to spend whenever he so chooses. You can imagine he's going to go back, pick up one of those beautiful monocles.
Nice.
That's actually going to be a really early War Treads as well, picking up from Keanu.
So this is definitely a composition that wants War Treads ASAP, probably more than Crucible, even though you're against a Gauntlet, to be honest. Just because of the fact that the way you win these fights is you snappily get on top of your opponents, you very quickly deal the damage. War Treads gets you there, gets you to where you need to be. The next item definitely does need to be Crucible, because you need to be able to then go through a Gauntlet if it's used very defensively from the Arden. But in these earlier fights, you know, Dark Potato can rely on his own reflex block to get through a Gauntlet wall, and hopefully Hundor can do the damage from the other side of it. So I like this build path from Keanu. On the other side, I think Net's doing smart things here, although that fear was very audacious. Whoa, Teddy just got half health by that buckshot.
Oh, yes, he did. Whoa, there comes the Gauntlet. There comes the one-shot. Doesn't find the kill, though. Now Fnatic. That turret's on about, I'd say, what, sub 10 HP without that shield. So, yeah, not looking so hot, but Dark Potato is. He's going to go in. Techno JJ had to back off using that active camo rather sharpish. And now G2, once again, all they need to do is just tap the turret, and it will end up going down. Dark Potato doesn't really mind. He just jumps in. He doesn't care.
He's kind of lucky he didn't actually follow Net there, to be honest, because he used his targeted dash. Net used Vanguard. Thankfully, he ended up kind of sketchily in the bush rather than going under the turret. Buckshot to finish it off. Oh, Palma.
Oh, Palma wants to go in, though. Hundor's going to burn. I think he's just going to burn out here as well. He's so close. He ends up surviving it. No questions. Hundor survives just. But now Fnatic burning all those G2 members out will be able to secure this turret for themselves. It's just going to burn away. There we go. So they actually do trade 1-for-1 in terms of turrets, but still, the goal lead was only 400 at 10 minutes in favor of Fnatic in game number 1. And now it is a whole 2,000 at 11 for G2.
G2 are struggling more than you might expect, though, given how much damage they have, because the thing is, you're against Kestrel and Scarf, right? So if you don't immediately get a kill, they do turn and burn you, just by virtue of Glimmer Shots and Spitfires being really great at just whilst you're running, firing in the back and hoping that you don't die whilst you're running away, right? This is more like a G2. They're going for an objective that they can actually leverage to make a fight happen here. Net is on the flank, though.
He is on the flank. That one-shot, one-kill isn't going to quite secure that gold mine. Keanu is fairly low, though, at this moment, so maybe not wanting to look for a fight. Dark Potato is about 2/3 HP as well. Hundor's starting to scale up. He's got that broken myth clockwork. He's got the Shatter Glass. He's doing a whole heap of damage. I'm kind of curious if he actually goes for something like an Echo here. Double buckshot would be kind of funny, or double Aces High.
Honestly,
Kind of,
I'd like
interesting to see.
I'd like to see Hundor get a reflex block quite soon. He's getting to the point where he needs it. and then also tier 3 boots, but the cheap ones that let you reset quite frequently, because he needs to be able to reposition in these fights and stay on the outskirts, going in and out. Skedaddle helps you do that. Sure, having more cooldown acceleration from the Halcyon chargers would be nice, but I think the more important part for Hundor in this game is being able to position around the areas of influence that Kestrel and Scarf have, right? Like, you gotta be able to position around goops, around traps. Being able to do that more frequently with more movement speed when you're going to be basic attacking with your perk anyway is pretty strong. Plus, cooldown acceleration only works to a point on Gwen, right? Because you mostly are just doing damage with your buckshot. You've already got a clockwork. Like, how much do you need to be effective? How much are you going to be able to stay close anyway without something like those boots?
Oh, Ordain is actually going to patch net to Alaire. Oh, that Ace's Height is going to get blocked as well. Does end up popping the War Treads just in case they wanted to re-engage there. Now, that's not the biggest cooldown in the world, but it's a cooldown nonetheless. We'll see what they want to do with it. But Dark Potato taking a lot of damage from these Spitfires. Not walking into them, it's just Palmatoro aiming them very, very acutely and finding their mark more often than not. But now G2, all they got really is poke from Hundor to do anything. If they go for an engage, they're going to focus Dark Potato. He will fall very quickly. Building up to that second monocle as well. As soon as he hits that, he's going to just detonate Techno. Not going to be anything left of him until he's finished.
We're starting to see a bit of a weakness in G2's composition, which is actually the Batiste. Batiste sets you up for a lot of kills early game if you're applying like a great deal of pressure. But later in the game, especially when you're building basically full weapon on Dark Potato, who's your front line in this composition? Nobody. Dark Potato's trying to be that guy, but as soon as he goes in, he gets bursted down, again by Glimmer Shots and Spitfires that are easily used when kiting. And G2 then can't commit to the fight and actually get their damage down. I have to wonder if Batiste was the correct decision because of this, unless G2 was going to pressure more in the early game. Their early game pressure was a little lackluster. It was basically, every once in a while, we opportunistically capitalize on someone being too far up the lane. That was it. At this point, G2 are starting to falter because they can't properly engage.
And that's exactly what Fnatic do have. They have got that engagement. Ordain is going to come down. Oh, Dark Potato getting struck with a couple of Glimmer Shots, though. He's going to have to back off. Now Techno JJ still just making sure he can clear that wave. I mean, the problem is Fnatic have got so much poke that it's very hard for G2 to actually do anything whatsoever unless Keanu commits himself completely.
I mean, if G2 gets properly into the late game, though, Hundor is pretty scary. CP Gwen really gets out of control later. It's so hard to initiate onto her because Skedaddle and because of Ace's High. Even Buckshot, I mean, the slow from that's nice. But then when you consider the fact as well that as soon as you miss position, you're going to lose a huge amount of health, and Buckshot can easily follow a Buckshot because of the low cooldown, it really does mean that Fnatic need to be very decisive, which could be a problem if G2 positions correctly.
I mean, I would say G2, more often than not, their positioning is extremely well placed. I mean, Hundor especially, as he is quite well known for his Baron, is very, very good at positioning in these team fights. And you've seen it already. A Buckshot never goes amiss, and it's always onto a couple of members of Fnatic when they're all grouped up, which is exactly what he needs to do. So, I mean, if G2 can kind of find that, they're going to find these team fights very, very easy. Dark Potato has got his double monocle now, so he is at the point in the game where Fnatic need to be very careful in how they deal with him. But that's exactly what they're doing, is dealing with G2 right now. That poke is just too much. Spitfire, Glimmer Shots, all the above, way too much for them. And Netwillet just needs to sit back with his gauntlet available to the rest of the team. And when G2 go for this massive all-in engage, he pops it and then segregates the rest of G2.
That's definitely an option here. You can see Net, if he doesn't decisively engage, look at how much poke he takes from Hundor. This is exactly what we were talking about. You cannot afford to take your time with these initiations. But it's also kind of difficult to fully commit because, and this is one thing Batiste does offer, right? Really strong disengage with Fearsome Shade. So also you can use stuff to protect Hundor. I mean, I'm starting to see ways in which G2 can play some of these later game fights more defensively, which is interesting because their comp does a lot early game and it does a lot late game, but in the mid game I feel like is actually when it's weakest. So G2, they're kind of on the brink here of hitting another big power spike. You know, they're 17 minutes into the game. Hundor is starting to really do some serious work.
Oof, those box shots over the wall. Ordained is going to get used.
Oh,
Nice aces high as well. Toilet in a lot of trouble. Does have to pop the Crucible and the War Treads yet again to get away. This could be go time for G2. They've got a lot of Kraken damage in the form of Dark Potato. 2 members, or just the 1 member from Fnatic backing off. Toilet coming back in the fight with about 3/4 HP. Tenno's going to know this is going on, but it's going very low. G2, they might just have this one under their belt. Fnatic need to do something. They need to do something now. Fearsome Shade, beautifully placed, and Palmatoro just gets annihilated. Aces high with a buckshot, finishes him off. The Kraken is going to go over to G2 as well. They're going to chase the rest of the Fnatic members away. Hundor comes up big in that fight.
Sometimes, you know, you use Crucible on yourself to keep yourself alive, and you really, really regret it shortly thereafter. And this was one of those times, considering that the Crucible didn't even stop the damage when Toilet had been jumped on earlier on. Try contesting something like a Kraken without, again, a snappy, decisive engage against a Gwen, a CP Gwen late game. You're not going to be able to do anything. This is really close to just being game for G2. They have so much turret damage with this weapon Grumpjaw that with the Kraken here, they might be able to push for win.
They might just be able to. That Kraken's marching down the lane. Fnatic need to be able to poke it out. That's exactly what they're doing. Still on about 3/4 HP, but Dark Potato is ripping through that turret. They're going to be able to just open up the base now from Fnatic. Fnatic still cutting back. They still got a lot of damage down onto this Kraken, but Hundor's going to be there. Aces high is going to get blocked, but Techno still takes a whole buttload of damage. Palmatoro rushing forwards is going to use that Crucible, I think that was actually, to block the Fearsome Shade to get a little bit more damage down to G2. They managed to kill the Kraken, and that will be just 1.5 turrets for G2.
Still not a bad push. I wonder maybe if a firmer engage could have came out from G2, but they want to play it safe, and I can see why. This is, you know, the game which decides whether or not they go to the finals. Well, not if they go to the finals, but if they don't go to the finals. Because if they lose this, the series will be going over to their opponents, Fnatic. G2, definitely showing signs of real strength here, though. Fnatic, they need to just, as I said, be decisive. We're not seeing any of that right now. It's hard to make that call when you're playing with a Kestrel and a Scarf. Those are not normally heroes you want to make a snappy engagement with. But against a Gwen, you don't have a choice. Your hand has been forced already.
They're going to try and force Fnatic's hand maybe again. And now Fnatic just desperately trying to take some of their camps for themselves, because they know right now G2 have almost dominant control if they wanted to take it of their jungle. Crystal Sentry hasn't really been touched. No prioritization over that, but I don't think G2 need to do it. They just need to control the lane now, control the waves. And with those infusers being popped all over the place as well now, they're going to want to look for another fight, and they're going to want to look for it fast. 4,000 extra gold has been picked up by G2 as well, sitting a very, very healthy lead. I mean, really, 6,000 gold at this point isn't a whole lot. We've seen more, but still for G2 in their composition, it's pretty big.
It's definitely enough. I think that's the thing to realize. Oh, ace is high.
Aces high is going to get blocked. Here comes the call. It's actually going to stun up Dark Potato. Beautifully placed. He's going to get taken out by just a stray Glimmer Shot. Now Keanu is in the front line with Palmatoro burning him out. Tenno is going to find Hundor, but Hundor's going to use that skedaddle to get away. Keanu is going to, again, be able to just scope out. One shot, one kill, actually striking Hundor, not quite finishing the job. Now G2 on the run. A beautiful gauntlet coming out from Toilet will secure Dark Potato's kill, but Kraken being available could mean Fnatic now get their chance.
I feel like Techno might have actually been able to kill Hundor there had he not spent so much of his time using Glimmer Shots, because yes, it does count as a basic attack, and therefore it does respectable damage as weapon, but there is more of a wind-up to your Glimmer Shot than your basic attack. I think he probably would have been able to get 2 or 3 more attacks in if he just committed to that onto Hundor. Potentially that was enough to get a kill. But now, I mean, regardless of whether or not that could have happened, Fnatic do have a Kraken on their side. This has been a very quick reversal of strength. Fnatic has an opportunity here to push and try and get some of this gold deficit back.
Yeah, that they do. I mean, again, we speak about G2's ability to take down neutral objectives, and this is exactly what they're doing now. You can see Dark Potato ripping through this Kraken, but you can imagine it's going to secure at least 1 turret if Fnatic are playing it rather well. The Kraken's a half HP, and the amount of burst potential Hundor does have, and the crowd control in the form of the slow he does have on his buckshot is very, very apparent. Kraken, though, is going to secure at least 1 turret for Fnatic, so I think they're going to be more than happy with that, considering it's been a nice, clean game for G2 thus far. And now Fnatic are going to back off, just look to rinse and reset and clear out some of this vision.
Fnatic need to be careful not to get engaged on as they're leaving here. Definitely just get some items, play it safe. Vision critical, you can see a lot of that being picked up by Net Toilette. I like what happened in that last fight, right? Like that gauntlet immediately was followed up. That's what needs to happen in these fights moving forward. Is G2, on the other hand, need to make sure their engagement is not too staggered. Dark Potato was way too far ahead of his team, which is very easy to do with this comp, by the way, as a Grumpjaw. You have a long-range dash. No one else on your team has solid mobility. It is going to end up sometimes where you're like a screen ahead of your team, and no one can follow you up. So definitely something to keep in mind. It's hard because Grumpjaw, as I said, he wants to be the front line in this comp, but he kind of can't. It has been working out because Hundor has been too threatening up until now, but if, again, Fnatic are more decisive, that could change. Grumpjaw does have a metal jacket now, though. That's going to be a big assistance with that kind of play. He's going to be a lot tankier if he tries to lead the charge for his team.
Tankiness is kind of very paramount to their composition. Kind of think about it in terms of the amount of follow-up that G2 do have. See what they want to do now, though, is now G2 once more. Their control of the jungle is just absolutely incredible, you could say. A lot of scout traps, and I know you're going to be very happy about that, AJ.
I am.
A lot of
I'm
vision.
very happy.
Looking very good. The map is almost looking like it's got chickenpox now. Fnatic, oh, Net Toilette maybe in a little bit of trouble. And now Fnatic actually, they're split up here. Net Toilette, yeah, this is an issue for him. Is he going to get stuffed up? No, he is not. He actually is going to pop that Crucible. Gauntlet is going to come down. It's going to stun Keanu. But over the wall, Hunter just lets that buckshot fly. Dragon's Breath. There's some shade. It's going to get blocked. The Fear. Net Toilette almost getting taken out there. G2 with a very proactive play. And Hundor again, positioning on point.
Fnatic could have engaged so much more quickly, though. Basically, right when Net Toilette got jumped on, they had a flank position that they could have moved into whilst Hundor was accessible. Whereas later on with Hundor over the wall, yeah, good luck trying to fight that. It's not going to happen if you're Fnatic. Now with Kraken back on the map, Fnatic has to be very cautious of that. Stuffed is the only ultimate on the side of G2 not available, whereas the much bigger cooldowns of Dragon's Breath and Gauntlet are off the table here for Fnatic. So G2 has a huge window of opportunity to just lock in this game with the Kraken take if they have vision of what Fnatic is doing here.
Now, what is the game plan for Fnatic at this point overall? I mean, they need to fight, yes, but do they fight over this Kraken? Do they just kind of march down the lane? Because their turret taking potential is huge. G2 would have to be forced to re-engage at that point.
Powatoran needs tier 3 boots, and then you just need to engage. You cannot take your time, as I said, against Hundor. It's not going to work. But right now, looks like they're resigning themselves to just maybe fighting a Kraken push. What's going on here? Be decisive.
I don't know. G2, yeah, G2 are just going to take this one, I think, handily. Fnatic stepping up. Tenno taking a fair bit of damage, already at half HP. G2 need to I think G2 just commit to the Kraken at that point, especially with Fnatic health bars blinking. Keanu's going to come in with the boots. Fission Shade is going to get blocked once again, so massive Crucible down. Now G2 just, again, juggling this Kraken. Nice stun over the wall from Pamatoro. Dogtail jumps in, and he finds the kill. That tension bow, just absolutely disgusting amount of damage. That's going to be the Kraken going over to G2, and they might as well just look for the win here.
It honestly looks like Fnatic has not played against Crystal Gwen before. They need to just be assertive, decisive. Like, you play Hundor's game when you play the way that Fnatic is playing. And yeah, to be frank, you're still probably going to lose because it's late game Crystal Gwen. But there are ways you mitigate the advantages that pick has. And Fnatic's not executing on those ways. I think in game number 3, Fnatic need to either pick a better composition into this inherently, or they need to adapt the way that they're playing and take some lessons learned from game number 1 here.
Lessons learned might be a little bit too late right now from Fnatic. They need to learn how to defend their turrets because that's already one going down. That Ordain's going to land onto Tenno. He can't really do much, but Palmadoro's going to come in. Second turret is going to get destroyed. Net Toilette still just getting burned, almost not burnt alive, but just getting taken out almost. That Crystal is going to go down. There's no way they're going to be able to stop the Kraken's push. G2, they wipe Fnatic and they wipe them off the board. Game number 2 will go over to G2.
All right, game number 3 is going to be interesting here. G2 has shown 3 very interesting drafts with things that we've not seen anyone else play. Sorry, 2 interesting drafts with the triple heal comp in game 1 and now this Crystal Gwen. what are they going to bring in game number 3? That's what I want to know. It doesn't seem like Fnatic are necessarily able to think on their feet in the way that they need to deal with this.
Well, we'll see what the drafter does come down to, but we're going to jump straight onto that desk, and the guys can break it down a little bit more.
Thank you very much, guys. What a game that was. It felt like G2 were in control for all of it, basically. Fnatic had a single moment of glory where they got a Kraken, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, that's why I was super excited when I called it CP Gwen. You can see that just Scarf and Kestrel. I mean, Scarf can do something because they're range 9 equally, but CP Gwen's Buckshot just does so much AoE damage. Range 9, it's instant versus Scarf. You can kind of dodge Spitfire, and Gwen is naturally fast with her passive.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's why she's so good. CP Gwen literally counters Kestrel and every single mage, except for maybe CP Kestrel, because CP Kestrel actually outranges her. But that's why I love the composition that G2 played.
Yeah, I mean, it started strong, right? In the early game, they started to run away with things.
Yeah, it was just right off the bat, they were just starting to really abuse the damage burst that they had. You know, the Grumpjaw, towards the mid-game, had a little bit of trouble getting himself engaged because of the Kestrel and the Scarf, but they just used that Gwen to perfection to make sure that the Kestrel had almost no effect on this game.
Yeah, and I love how they comboed it. When Gwen slows or Grumpjaw lands a slow, Grumpjaw slow lasts about 2 seconds. Gwen's Buckshot Bonanza lasts about 2 seconds. So if they land that, and you can see in the early game exactly what happened. Once they landed one of the carries, those carries just literally melted and disappeared.
Yeah, it wasn't just about the composition either. Like, G2 were executing really, really well as well.
Yeah, there was so many strong plays that they were making, setting up opportunities for themselves well in advance of when they happened. This was a huge example of that. The vision they had down, along with the Buckshot obviously giving vision, they force the Crucible to come out of the Arden just to keep himself alive as the Grumpjaw comes over the wall. And then just seconds later, you can see the Crucible is still on cooldown, so that huge Fearsome Shade comes through, cancels out the Scarf ultimate, and allowed G2 to pick up that Kraken. It was just, again, really a premeditated play. They saw the Crucible go out and they say, okay, we know we can now stop them from trying to engage on us because that Crucible is down. Look for a fight.
Yeah. And then we got to the late game CP Gwen, and it just started to go a little bit...
Yeah, this is a perfect example of Fnatic not understanding their enemy's team's win condition and just playing into it. They can't dance and try to outpoke a CP Gwen. You need to go in, try to get Kestrel onto the CP Gwen, get double ward treads or something, because Gwen had no defense, Aegis or armor. If Scarf or Kestrel landed a few good shots and they CC'd her, Gwen would just disappear. And they needed to play to their win condition. They can't try to play the poke game against CP Gwen. That's why they lost, because they're playing so passive. This game didn't need to go as long as it needed to be. And G2 needed to be more decisive too, because Hundor a few times could have finished the game and chased with his CP Gwen and BM stacks, but they just played really passive. I don't know why.
Playing it safe, yeah.
But
I feel
G2
like that's
came out on top.
G2 have definitely been playing quite a very defensive playstyle in general. I want to start to talk about the draft, which is, you know, going to be difficult because G2 haven't exactly been meta across the course of today so far.
Yeah, two very different, very unique drafts for G2, one being a lot more successful than the other. I feel like they're going to stick to that, the off-meta sort of compositions here. Obviously, still taking care of getting the Grace or the Baron and such off the board. You know, the first couple bans are still fairly typical, but the actual picks themselves, I expect G2 to try and shake it up once again.
And there's the Grumpjaw ban. Well, like I said, when a team runs a weapon Grumpjaw, I prefer almost exclusively weapon Grumpjaw over CV Grumpjaw because of his damage potential and the plays he can make. Baron Grumpjaw, typical ban. Typical, actually, vanilla draft here with Grace being first picked by
This is
G2.
how it started in game 1 too, though.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, they have the potential for a full
they're
heal
going to take the Baptiste here now.
Yeah, so this is an interesting first pick. We don't usually see Baptiste this early on in the draft.
Yeah, normally they secure it first because they can flex him as a captain or as a jungler. So he is very flexible and it's a great first pick, I feel, for a lot of compositions. So I think Blackfeather may be banned here potentially, or maybe Fnatic may want to play the Blackfeather because Techno is very good on BF. Because again, Blackfeather is probably one of the best counters against Baptiste because of his mobility and his range once he's level 8.
I also really like the Baptiste pick because we know it can be played as a captain, and so we've seen so much emphasis on the Arden of late that now if, let's say, G2 bans away the Arden, they can just say, okay, we'll just run the Batiste as a captain instead. And it is going to be the Scarf ban. So now Fnatic, maybe they do want to go for the Arden and run the Batiste in the jungle. That first pick just gives them options, and I really like that.
Palmatara getting a respect ban here.
Yeah, that's a huge respect ban. I think maybe Samuel might be a good pick here if they're going to run a Captain Batiste. No, they're going to actually pick the Arden like Bacon said. So that's going to be a jungle Batiste here. Which is interesting because against a Grace, he's going to lose if it's like a really aggressive jungler. But they're going to actually jungle the Grace and do a CP Celeste. Okay, so this is a very interesting draft here. Based on Fnatic last pick, we'll see how this goes.
What were we expecting coming in, really? G2, they've had 2 weird drafts coming in. They have to round it out with a third off-the-wall meta as well.
Yeah, but Finn and Celeste do work well into Batiste, and even Grace actually too, because they can stand their ground and fight him. And Celeste completely outranges him once she's level 8, and that counters Batiste as the range game. So Fnatic needs to pick something that they can dive onto Celeste potentially here. Maybe a Weapon Glaive, a Weapon Blackfeather would be good here. Let's see what they decide, because Techno and Blackfeather is actually really, really good.
A lot of options available to them. Is Fnatic looking to round out this composition? What are we feeling, Bacon?
I feel like they need just something that can soak up some burst. That's, I mean, obviously Arden can do that. Blackfeather is going to be a great pick for it. Have sustain, can dodge out a lot of the burst, and can dive onto the backline, get onto that Celeste. That was going to be one of their big struggles if they didn't pick something like the Blackfeather or some other assassin. And the Blackfeather, I think, is going to be able to deal with that quite well.
All right, well, let's have a look at these comps as a whole then. Once again, G2 falling back onto this weapon power Grace that we've seen them. It didn't work in the first game. It didn't work when we've seen it before.
0-for-2 win rate, Weapon Grace.
Yeah, it's
not graceful with the wins.
Are we not convinced? Like, what do we think about this G2 draft? No,
I'm not convinced on Weapon Grace whatsoever. I've yet to see, and like it has a strong early game, sure. It has a strong A ability, sure, but that's it. That's all it has. That's all it brings to the table.
Or it could be a CP Stormcrown Grace, CP Grace. And then they just super farm Hundor and just get him to his late game power build extremely fast in Celeste. That could work too. They have done that before with Baron.
I was going to say late game Hundor is not exactly the first time we've heard that sentence. How are we feeling about the draft then? I want to go predictions as it's 1-1.
I really like Blackfeather into Celeste. He's an assassin and he counters Celeste really well. If she's going to be ulting, he can just He can just ult past it and dodge Celeste ultimate. So I think Fnatic, if they play properly, can win against G2 here.
Okay. Fnatic should be able to take this because I assume it's still going to be a Weapon Grace, and just the composition that Fnatic has will play really well at being able to survive that initial burst damage that comes out from Grace and Celeste, and should be able to not even really worry about the Finn at all.
All right, so we have a Fnatic desk here then. I've got to say, I kind of want G2 just to work with the innovative compositions. I want the cool stuff to happen. Whether it'll happen or not, we'll have to wait and see as we get on into the game as well. Don't forget as well to get involved in the conversation using that hashtag Vainglory8 on social media. Are you a G2 fan or are you a Fnatic fan? We want to know. Let us know on Twitter. But with that, it's time to get on into this third game of the semi-final between G2 and Fnatic.
Thank you very much, guys. Over on the desk, my name is George, joined by AJ for this third game in this best of 3 versus Fnatic and G2. Now, Dark Potato, he's picked up that Grace once again, going this weapon power build, but we're seeing that Celeste in lane from Hundor this time.
This is an interesting pickup, actually, because we have not seen a lot of Celeste recently. It is something, like Sweetj said, that can work nicely into a Batiste, so long as you don't get blitzed by the Fearsome Shade, right? That can be really crushing, because it is very long range, it can disable you, and then you're not able to really do much. But Hundor, this is a player that I expect to be able to reflex block something like that, especially when there's a large lead time on the ability because you're playing from so far away anyway. Net Toilette going quite aggressive early on here. We see this a lot. Whichever team has a stronger jungle duo tends to send their captain in, try and get them to mess with the opponent a little bit.
Speaking of mess, and he's just standing in front of him recalling, AJ. That is my favourite form of BM. Dark Potato, though, is going to be able to secure that healing camp without too much of a problem with dealing with Net Toilette. Palmatoro, though, on this Batiste, and like you said, the more stronger, elegant duo in the early game will always get secure. of this, or control.
Did you
even
say the
over
more
this
stronger,
Eldrake.
eloquent duo?
Yeah,
Did I-
eloquent. Yeah,
Okay.
they're looking pretty eloquent.
I can kind of dig it.
Got
All
a
right, well,
dictionary next to me.
Let's talk about some of this other stuff going on here. We got Blackfeather in the lane up against a Celeste. Now, Blackfeather, this is someone who can sustain very effectively, and also on point means that you can trade pretty nicely with Hundor. Whenever he goes for the Heliogenesis, it's going to be pretty difficult to get damage to stick because of on point. You know, you're locking yourself into an animation. Makes it very easy for Tetno to land the shielding portion of the ability. Then you don't actually deal damage to him. This should mean that up until around level 8, Tetno feels pretty good in lane and can maybe even start rotating and helping another team, if not for the fact that Grace is just so good at pressuring early on. I do think that Tetno might end up being at a deficit not because of the lane matchup, but because of the matchup as a whole. Once we hit level 6, though, this is definitely a good pick into the comp that G2 is running. The fact that Blackfeather can avoid a lot of the crowd control that G2 has to offer, and you got to remember G2 has crowd control on every single member of their lineup, is going to allow him to stick damage much more easily and be so threatening that he forces a reaction and buys space for Palmatoro.
And the big thing is about his build and his kit as well. He's going to have a lot of sustain, so he's going to be able to at least survive when he hits that back line of G2. Oh dear, Keanu in a lot of trouble there. He's going to use that polite company, though, to get that fortified health. He's going to have to just recall now as Fnatic. The pedal to the metal, and they are going to force Hundor underneath this turret. And that's one important factor about Hundor. Does use a lot of these weapon scaling or CP scaling carries in the form of this Brindle Celeste, which do take a while to get online. Tetno, arguably not so much, and with Palmatoro's ability to CC as well, not so much either. So Hundor's going to have to be more than safe and play safe. But when it gets to the late game, it's going to be very hard, you can imagine, for Tetno to stick that damage if Keanu and Dark Potato are just sitting on top of Hundor.
These teams do have some very interesting stylistic differences, Jaws. I think that's a good point to make. Tetno is not really the hard carry on Fnatic, even though he plays from lane. I would definitely say that Palmatoro consistently is the hard carry for that team, whereas Hundor almost certainly the hard carry for G2. Now, one thing that's worth noting is that Fnatic is playing in such a way to really mess up G2's plan, I think, and I believe Suijay mentioned this. He was talking about the fact that Hundor might try and hyper farm this game. Grace does not need that many items to be effective. A lot of her kit comes from her abilities and just having levels in those, whereas Hundor needs levels and gold. So if you're able to rotate him down and take jungle camps, then back up to the lane, take the wave, you might as well do that, so long as you can at least get Dark Potato to 1 or 2 items fairly fast, which with this early tension bow you can see they have been able to do. But Fnatic is constantly shoving lane by putting multiple members in the lane. That's making it hard for Hundor to leave and not actually lose something in the process.
Definitely good game plan, you could say, then from Fnatic, making sure Hundor is feeling the burn of Fnatic's pressure. And now Fnatic, what do they need to do apart from just pressure Hundor out? Because we have this such strong and competent duo as Palmatoro and Nettoilette on Baptiste and this Arden. Very, very good in the jungle, can disrupt Dark Potato a fair bit as well. And the amount of CC that they do have, they can take control and get a lot of vision down. You can see Palmatoro now clearing a little bit of that out as Fnatic actually get aggressed on as soon as he gets spotted on that scout trap, but they know better to back off because Palmatoro could have been in the wings. Has hit that level 6 mark as well, just to reiterate the amount of CC he does have. It does have Fearsome Shade now available to him.
So Fnatic, what they really need to do is try and find team fights around Goldmine if they want a team fight. If they want to just pressure the turret, they have that option. Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go indeed. Oh God. That ended before it even started. Hundor didn't stand a chance against Nettoilette and Tetno diving in. Palmatoro comes in there as well for the cheeky assist. Fnatic already put that pedal to the metal. They focus the right person. It's going to be Hundor.
Yeah, smart play there, going for the initiation before Hundor actually gets to the point where, you know, he has higher range at level 8. This means that you know he's going to have to be kind of close to the wave in order to kill it with Helios. That gives you a big opening to go in with Palmatoro. Also, prior to Reflex Block being built, it's really dirty how easy it is for Baptiste to land Chain CC. You ordained and you Fearsome Shade them into the wall. and you're pretty much guaranteed to land that every single time. Now that Batiste has a Shatterglass too, don't be surprised if we see Fnatic trying to pressure the lane even more with some poke damage. They certainly have that option right now.
And with Techno hitting that level 6 as well, that Rose offensive, he's just going to be on top of Hundo consistently. He's got that Poison Shiv as well to get rid of some of that healing that's going to come out from Dark Potato later on. Now Palmatora rotating down towards that Gold Miner. Won't find all too much, but at least he knows where Dark Potato is. It's going to be a slower game, I think, here, AJ. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be explosive
Slower
when
than
the fights
27
happen.
minutes we had last game. Are you sure, Jaws?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Slow right now, at least. You have to give me that one, at least. Mojo
Slow
being blown out all the place there.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, slow pace, yeah.
Well, I can certainly see where you're coming from. There's a very durable lineup in G2, and Fnatic are the ones who really want to be applying pressure in the mid game. Celeste hits her spike a little bit later on. Dark Potato, on the other hand, does want to be doing things early, but that is a bit of a dissonance, actually, I think, in what G2's picked up, because Dark Potato going weapon power, the strength of that pick is in the early game. If Dark Potato decided, for example, to go more of a proc build, then maybe you can make the argument for a later game thing. Oh, trying to steal that away, does not find it. If he was going Crystal Power, that does more in the late game. But straight Weapon Grace is not really a late game pick, whereas the Celeste definitely is. So I think that Dark Potato is here to buy time for her. Whether or not that's going to be as efficient as it could be in the late game, though, I don't think it will be. Like, I think that Dark Potato is going to struggle to be effective once we hit, like, the 14-minute mark.
Ooh, Techno taking a fair bit of damage from that tension bow, but they look like they want to go for a little re-engage, but Hundo with that core collapse just threatens Fnatic a little bit too much, and they decide to turn around and run away. Now just pushing again once more. Hundo is just so scary at this point with that Frostburn as well. When he does overload that Heliogenesis in the next level, it's going to be very, very scary. Nice Ordained and a bad Mojo to get a little bit of damage down, but Dark Potato is going to struggle off, so is Hundo. They got Keanu there as well to kind of facilitate that disengagement. And now Fnatic trying to get some of G2's jungle.
G2, I mean, they're doing a good job of staying quite healthy and not getting jumped on. They tried, when they were able to do it safely, to contest the gold mine. I think that's smart. But now that Hunter is level 8, I would like to see G2 be a little bit more aggressive. They have kind of a miniature power spike here where suddenly they're higher range. They've got a Frostburn on Hunter. They have a Tension Bow on Dark Potato. They can be a little bit pressuring on the turret so long as they keep vision in the mustache bush on Fnatic's side. But then maybe like 2 minutes from now, just stop again and wait until you're fully late game.
Well, game number 2, we saw G2 about 2k gold lead at about the 11-minute mark. We are approaching that very shortly, and they also had 2 kills around that time as well. This composition, definitely the slower of the scaling, slower of the two in terms of scaling, but Dark Potato's got the Tension Bow and the Poison Shiv on him, so if they want to fight, they can fight now, because Hundle does have that overload.
Oh,
hang on a second, though. They go for an engagement. Hundle's in a little trouble. Fearsome Shade onto 3 people. Hundle's getting chased down, but that massive heal, Divine Intervention, is going to save him underneath his own. Force to Cord as well was huge from Keanu. Here comes Net Toilette, though. He needs to be able to escape alive. Fnatic, with this sustain from Techno and Net Toilette, were able to survive that, what looked like to be a disastrous engagement.
You know, if Hundor had landed most of his skill shots in that fight, G2 probably would have gotten a couple of kills. That was honestly a really solid disengage and then re-engage from G2, but they did not connect with a lot of abilities. Dark Potato probably does not want to go in right now. That'd be a bit bold for my liking. But we do have Hundor on his way back here. Fnatic needs to not overstay.
Well, they could try something. Dark Potato gets ordained, though. It's going to get stunned. There goes the bad Mojo, actually almost executing him. Woo, 426 damage. There we go. Shatter Glass on the Batiste.
Yeah, that's doing a lot of damage right now. You can see that Fnatic actually want to go back in onto Hundor here.
Oh, yes, they do. Hundor peeks his head out, and he just gets jumped on. Tenno is going to be able to find a kill. And Fearsome Shade just rattling through the members of G2. Dark Potato is going to heal Keanu up, but Fnatic finding that kill is going to be pretty big for them.
Yeah, that was a really nice play by Fnatic. They're managing to edge out small leads in the early game, which you would hope that they could do with their composition. As things get closer towards the mid game, they're going to have to start worrying about 2 items, 3 items on Hundor, who now has that 2-item spike. In addition to also, yeah, Crucible just being picked up by Keanu. That's actually a really important item against a Batiste. So keep your eyes peeled for how Keanu is able to facilitate these re-engages and disengages for the side of G2. They're starting to get to that point where they definitely can contest. Fnatic had a huge lead up until this point, but the Crucible is huge.
Crucible is really big. That stops a lot of the engagement from Keanu if it is popped accordingly. But I mean, Techno has got the Aegis, and we do have a Reflex Block on Palmatora as well, so they've got that in their own kit. Now, it is time. It's time for Hundor to just poke at range, and there's nothing Fnatic can do about it unless they fully engage. Look at that damage from the Heliogenesis. Almost goes down, in fact, but Fnatic just forcing something here. Gauntlet is going to come down. It's only going to stun at one. Dubter is caught, and that Ordained as well. Big silence onto Keanu to make sure he couldn't use that Forced Accord. Now Fnatic just playing this rather slowly now. That is a massive cooldown for Ned to let used.
Hundor does not yet have an Eve, and as a result, the energy regeneration is nowhere near good enough to fight a lot of these more extended initiations. I'm actually surprised Keanu went for a hook there, because Hundor can't follow. That probably would not have worked out very well for the side of G2. But they are just trying to stay in this one, try and keep defending the turret. If Fnatic get on top of it here, they can definitely take it down.
Yeah, they can. Hundor is backing, and they know Keanu is backing as well, or at least he wants to, looking at just judging on his HP.
Yeah, there's the Eve pickup for Hundor. This is what he needs to really start spiking here. I think it's hit a point where Hundor definitely wants to fight now. G2, they can start really trying to put the pressure onto Fnatic, as opposed to just reacting or looking for opportunistic windows.
That would definitely seem it. Ordain does come down to Hundor. He's just staying in the middle of it, though. There comes the Quibble onto three people. The stun, the fear that everything is just bundled onto Hundor. He ends up falling, but now it's Techno, JJ, and Nedwell's time to shine. Dark Potato is just getting kited away, and Techno makes a mean work of Keanu. And now Dubter really can't find much when he hasn't got vision to Netwellette. He's going to go down. That's going to be an ace for Fnatic, and they're going to push for this tier 2 turret.
So when I said I wanted them, or they wanted to fight, there was a clarification point needed, which is that they needed to at least heal up Keanu and Dark Potato first, and probably not fight around that turret, which was so nearly dead anyway. Like, why not leverage an objective that can actually do something, or, you know, put yourself in a position where you actually can abuse Hundor's range. Hundor was just standing on the turret, even though the turret was nearly dead. That's not going to work, because Fnatic could just pile onto you quite easily in that position. Plus, going for the stun that Hundor went for isn't going to do anything against Techno JJ if his reactions are on point, because you can just use Rose Offensive to get onto Hundor after he throws out the core collapse. Ultimately, whilst I think that was a timing that worked for G2, it was not very well executed, and they really needed to have Keanu and Dark Potato ready to fight as well as Hundor.
Communication and coordination there, AJ. That's what it all comes down to. That gold miner is going to get taken by Fnatic, you can imagine, but they're going to want to go for this engage. That gauntlet is available for Netwellette whenever he wants to use it. Fearsome Shed as well. Equivalent to two people, but Fnatic, they secure the gold mine. Forced Accord is sent out by Keanu. Is going to get blocked by that Crucible. So, big win here for Fnatic. They have got 5k in the bank over G2, and now G2 on the run.
Yeah, G2, they were able to get some nice poke damage down there, but it wasn't really enough, considering that Fnatic does have some sustain on Palmatoro and Tetno, in addition to Net's perk, actually. Anyone who gets focused here on Fnatic needs to die in that same fight. Oh, bad reflex block!
Oh my goodness, that was a bad misposition from Hundor. He ends up going down. Dark Potato is soon to follow. Gauntlet is going to strike him down. Ordained to just make sure he's enclosed in that gauntlet even further. Techno JJ finds his 5th kill of the game, and Fnatic are coming up big against G2. They're going to take that turret. There you go. Take it. There you go. You got it. And you can imagine they're going to go towards the Kraken now.
I can't help but be reminded of Hundor's Celeste from spring season and even further back than that. It's always been a pick that he sometimes goes to, and it feels kind of weird to me, and he never has really executed on it. He's always been much stronger on the weapon carries in lane. This is just not working. He's not reflex blocking on time. I guess it doesn't matter what hero you're playing to reflex block on time, but it lines up. He wasn't able to reflex block properly there, even though he had it off cooldown. On top of that, his positioning in fights has not been the best. His use of his core collapse has not been the best. I feel like Hunter is just not a player who excels when they have to play defensively. He'd much rather just kind of go in, which is the style he plays with Baron, for example. It's starting to bite G2 in the butt because consistently, if you were to look at his stats on this hero, it just has not panned.
Well, now Fnatic are just marching down the down at the lane. Hundle's come online though. We can't ignore that fact. He has got Broken Myth. He's sitting on 3 items now. So he can do an absolute boatload of damage if he doesn't miss position. Nettoilette has got that gauntlet. That Kraken's going to be marching on those turrets. Core collapse on Palmatoro. We'll just dodge it out. But Hundle has got the ability now to just zone out of Fnatic. You can see them getting chunked out a fair bit by this Heliogenesis. They just haven't got a lot of damage to take down this Kraken quickly. It's going to at least take one of those turrets. Fearsome Shade is going to get blocked. That turret will end up falling. Fnatic maybe looking for the retreat here. Or possibly doing something else. Forced to to bring them back in, but again, it is going to get blocked by that Crucible.
So different team compositions utilize Kraken pushes in different ways. What Fnatic does with a Kraken push is kind of sits there and says, if you want to kill Kraken, we're going to poke you. If you want to fight us, Kraken's going to kill your turrets. Whereas if you were to look at like G2's composition, if they weren't pushing with Kraken, they'd probably be a lot more aggressive. They could probably afford to be. G2, after 1 or 2 mistakes consecutively, are now severely on the back foot. Fnatic, they faltered a little bit in game number 2, but they look very good here. I'm worried for G2's ability to come back into this game. It's really going to rely on Hunter having good positioning in these fights.
What it comes down to, he's the main source of damage right now. You'd have thought. I mean, Dark Potato hasn't built all too tanky. He has got the Aegis, has got the Atlas Pauldron, but he's not doing a lot of damage either. He's only got Poison Shiv and the Tension Bow. So he's really not doing all too much. I mean, he goes in for the initial burst damage, and then he is going to be there for the Holy Nova, for that Divine Intervention. And it's going to be Hundle making sure he can get the damage proficient enough to kind of take Fnatic low, and then they can turn the fights around. But 2 major carries on the side of Fnatic in Techno and Palmatoro. Palmatoro has just shown up on this Batiste. His Ordains have been good. And Techno just with that consistent form of damage as well, with that breaking point. It's even gone Slumbering Husk as well, by the way, AJ.
Yeah, I like the Slumbering Husk pickup for sure. It's definitely going to help him really stick these fights. Dark Potato, I wonder what he's really going to be doing. I think he's just got to sit on top of Hundor, try and deal damage to whoever is focusing Hundor. I'd like to see Fnatic be a little bit more decisive. I'm getting flashbacks to Game 2 here, Jaws, where they just did not decide to engage when they probably could have. Fnatic has a gauntlet. That is the ultimate we fight now ability in Vainglory8. It really does set the stage for a team fight. At the very least, it makes the members of G2 burn their reflex blocks potentially, which sets up for Palmatoro to go for the Fearsome Shade. Here comes a Forced Accord, not going to land. Again, Fnatic, how many more green lights do you need to just go?
Well, I don't know, AJ. This is a pretty big green light because they're just dashing straight in. Nettoilette's going to pop those ward treads. Ordain comes out onto 3 peoples of G2, and that Fearsome Shade is going to be blocked once more. But Hundor in the back line just getting jumped on. Who's going to fall first? They're on top of each other. Hundor is going to be the first casualty of war, and now Palmatoro is falling as well. I can't see what's going on, AJ. I'm not going to lie, but Techno is dead, and Nettoilette using that gauntlet to encase them all in, but G2 is having none of it. Dark Potato is going to chase him down with that Benediction. And Keanu is going to follow up as well. Quibble from the Forced Accord. They're not going to be able to chase up all too much. But with Hundor being down, they can't really go for this Kraken. But they can at least secure themselves a turret.
You know, I wanted Fnatic to engage there. But stacking that closely together against a Grace, whose weapon power, is a recipe for disaster. You're going to be splashing damage from your Heroic perk onto everyone, every single attack. The attack speed of Grace is not that bad, especially with Poison Shiv. That was the big source of damage there, to be honest, because Hundor went pretty quickly in the fight. And Keanu, we're getting towards the late game, right? Like, Fnatic did need to be a little bit quicker, I think, in setting the pace here. We mentioned this before, but G2 really wants to play for the late game with a Celeste and a Finn. Those are both heroes that scale for that. And Grace was kind of the weird pick in the comp for that reason. It was the bridge to get to the late game. You can see that, you know, Finn especially is starting to really do work, although Hundor, again, hasn't had the best positioning in some of these fights, has been struggling a little bit to be effective.
He really well, the thing is with Fnatic, the reason why he's having a hard time is because everybody just jumps on him. Like, you only need to target him, take him out, ignore Dark Potato for the little while, and then just delete him. And then once he's gone, then you only have to deal with Dark Potato. Keanu isn't doing a whole load of damage. Neither is Dark Potato in comparison to Hundor. I mean, I haven't really seen a big Solar Storm either. I mean, the thing is, with Fnatic just bundling on top of him, I guess it could be rather hard to aim, is my only kind of thought on that. The Sentry is going to go down, but Fnatic, they are looking to close this game out. 3k in the lead for them, but again, it can go either way. But G2 only having one turret left, and that Kraken going sharply over to Fnatic, this could just be the end.
It could indeed. The Kraken push here, very devastating if G2 doesn't do something right now. They are trying to move in and deal with the attempt here by Fnatic.
Yes, they are, but they're just going to re-engage themselves. There comes the Ordained. The Fearsome Shade is going to get blocked. That's going to be big. The Gauntlet still... No, it's going to be down for the Net Toilette. Fountain is going to get popped from Fnatic, but they're just going to go down. Hundor has come online, forced to call to bring Keanu back in. Amaturo falls, and there we go. Hundor finds himself 2 kills. They find themselves the ace, and the Kraken's going to come online for G2.
Kraken didn't reset that whole fight. G2 had no work to do after they managed to get the ace. There's 40 seconds on everyone, and G2 is going to be able to take 2 turrets before Kraken even hits the base. This could be game Jaws. Big thing to note there, very different play out of Dark Potato. He did not decide to play kind of in a self-interested way where he was trying to deal the damage and find kills. He was playing exclusively for the benefit of Hundor, actually using his ultimate on him during the fight rather than weirdly having it up afterwards. This is huge. Fnatic, they need to just go. They need to just fight if they want to have any chance of winning this game.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're going to ignore that Kraken that forced the call onto 2 members of Fnatic. Will leave Tenno JJ completely isolated with Hundor and Dark Potato. But Hundor's going to fall anyway. The regen coming out from Tenno is just all too much. Fnatic are now just going to go back to their base because that Kraken and Keanu, those 2 massive hunking beasts, are just crashing down on their base. That turret's going to fall. That Crystal's going to be next. Keanu's not going down without a fight. He's going to use that polite company for the fortified HP. He ends up falling to Techno, and now they just need to kill the Kraken. They've got the ace. They could very well just end the game as soon as this is done.
Maybe, but at the same time, I mean, it's not like the respawns are that long. Plus, they still got to kill the Kraken, Jaws. 1 or 2 more attacks to do it. I'm not sure how many it actually needs. Oh that's
my
so close.
Goodness.
So
Inch
close.
of HP.
I don't
That
think
turret
Fnatic
in their
can
base, though, isn't very healthy. It's 2/3 HP.
It's 2/3 HP, but Keanu's the only one with the long respawn here. I don't know. It's going to be really tough for Fnatic to push all the way in. They are thinking of doing it, but I don't know. Sentry. Okay, yeah, Sentry is going to be the option here. Jaws, this game is very much anyone's to take at this point. A single team fight from this point onwards definitely ends things. I think that Dark Potato, now that he's got this Atlas Aegis and he's using heal on Hundor, has started to become useful again after being in a bit of a slump in the mid game when he just kind of had offensive items, didn't really do anything. Hundor has now got 2 defensive items of his own, plus the heal from Grace and the fortified health from Keanu Nakoa. That's enough to keep him healthy, even if he does have to stand his ground. So this is definitely, I would say G2 have the edge, but Fnatic, you've seen it in that second fight, for example, they can go in and kill Hundor if the team doesn't back him up properly.
Yeah, well, Techno can solo out Hundor, even though Dark Potato and Hundor are on him at one time. Like, that is scary. He is 8-2. He picked up a Bone Saw earlier as well, an item I've not seen in a long time. He's got 2 regeneration items as well, well, lifesteal items, I should say. Slumbering Husk to get that 4 to 5 HP from the burst of Hundor. He's one scary black feather, put it that way.
He really is, and Techno wants to go right now. Oh, or not. He was just baiting me like he was baiting G2, maybe.
Oh,
fourth
whoa,
one lands!
hang on a second. Palmatura gets dragged in. That Crucible a little bit too late, but Tenno on the backline once again. Fearsome Shade on 3 people. Gauntlet's going to get laid down. Keanu with a triple quibble. Tenno's going to be the first to fall. G2, this could be their game. Yes, it is. Palmatura, the last one alive, and G2 just annihilates Fnatic in this such a close game. 26 minutes in. Only 1,000 gold between the 2 teams, and G2 have done it.
They have indeed, and Jaws, what a turnaround. Things were not looking good for G2 for the longest time, but when their composition really properly hit late game, it came online. Fnatic, it's a bit of a heartbreaker for them. They had a very strong game number 2. In addition to that, sorry, game number 1, and on top of that, they were able to really show some strength in the early and mid game of game number 3, but it just wasn't quite enough. G2, they've been making these interesting team compositions work for themselves today.
They really have. There goes the crystal, there goes the game and the series. G2. What a fantastic performance from them. And I want to see Hundle on this Celeste. He had a tough time dealing with Techno, but he really made it work in the late game. We're going to jump over to the desk because we need a breather. And those guys can have a look at this game a little bit more.
It's a win for G2, but it was not a clean win. In the end, they are going to manage to make it. And I guess Weapon Grace, it's the real deal, right, guys? Like, it's the new meta? No?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
that was Fnatic doing their absolute best to not win this game. That was really, really bad team fighting from Fnatic down the stretch. I mean, they got the late game. They were dominating G2.